Welcome back to ADU Adventures, Building in Your Backyard. I'm James, and today I want you to picture something with me for a second. The lights go on, the screen glows, and for 2 hours you believe it. The spaceship, the sunset over a city that never existed, 2 people saying goodbye on a train platform in the rain. You forget completely that you are sitting in a chair, looking at a light thrown on a wall. That is about the closest thing we have to real magic. The power to make people believe. And almost all of it, the movies you love, the shows you grew up on, was conjured in one small city tucked into San Fernando Valley, Burbank, California, the media capital of the world. Warner Brothers is here, Walt Disney is here, NBC, and a few hundred other studios and production houses. If you've watched almost anything, some piece of it was dreamed up, shot, or finished within a few miles of downtown Burbank. This is the town that makes the magic. But here's the secret the audience never sees. The magic doesn't happen when the camera rolls. By the time someone yells action, the hard part is already done. The magic is really made before it rolls at all, in a phase they call pre-production. The script is locked, the budget's built, the storyboard's drawn, the location's scouted. Every single shot is planned and all the cast is chosen. Weeks and months of unglamorous homework, so that when the director finally calls action, the wonder just appears. No real production in Burbank ever rolls film without it. It would be madness. You'd burn a fortune discovering, live on the clock, everything you should have known going in before. And that, believe it or not, is the whole episode. Because your ADU has a pre-production too. It's called feasibility, and it is always, always, always the first thing any homeowner should do. And you get the good kind of magic, a project that simply works with little to no surprises at all. So here's the plan. First, Burbank's history, a wild story about illusion and about the homework hiding underneath it. Then, what feasibility really is, and why it's the best gift you can give your own project. I'll share a little bit of a horror story too, because you know what? We genuinely see it a lot, and how real professionals do their homework first. So the scope they hand you is built on reality instead of any kind of hope. Because underneath it all, this is a family integrity planning show. And protecting your family means protecting them from surprises, wherever they come from. So let's roll film and dive in. The city that perfected illusion. Burbank starts, of all things, with a dentist and a flock of sheep. The city is named for David Burbank, a dentist who came west in the 1800s, bought up land, and raised sheep on it. From that sheep ranch, a town grew, and Burbank incorporated as a city in 1911. But the story you know starts in the 1920s, when Hollywood realized the crowded LA basin was running out of room, and Burbank had space, and light, and room to breathe. In 1926, the first National Pictures bought a 78-acre lot here. Warner Brothers took it over soon after, and classics like Casablanca and the Maltese Falcon were made right here in the valley. Then in 1940, Walt Disney took the profits from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and built a brand new studio on Buena Vista Street. Burbank became, and still is, the media capital of the world. This is a city that mastered illusion, making a back lot look like Paris, making a Tuesday afternoon look like midnight in Morocco, making you believe. And then, during World War II, Burbank pulled off the most incredible illusion in its history. And this is the story I really want you to hold on to. Burbank was an aviation town as well. Lockheed's plant here employed nearly 100,000 people building the P-38 Lightning fighters and B-17 bombers for the war. After Pearl Harbor, that plant became one of the most important and most vulnerable military targets in the country. So the Army brought in a colonel named John Ulmer, and Ulmer did something that could only have happened in Burbank. He called the studios. Set designers and artists from Disney, Warner Brothers, Fox, and Paramount came in, and together they built a fake town on top of the factory. A canopy of chicken wire and netting and canvas painted with streets and sidewalks that lined up with the real streets nearby. Fake houses, fake trees, made by gluing chicken feathers to wire and spray painting them green. Rubber cars that workers moved around from catwalks underneath so it looked like a living neighborhood. They even painted the runway to look like a grassy field, and it worked. Underneath the canopy, thousands of people built warplanes. Above it, from the sky, there was nothing to see but a sleepy little suburb. The story goes that a general was flown over the area and challenged to spot the factory. He couldn't do it. It had simply disappeared. Now sit with that, because it is the perfect way to open this episode. Burbank is the world capital of making the surface look like something it isn't, and that cuts two ways. One, never, ever trust the surface. From above, it was a neighborhood, but underneath, it was a factory. What you can see almost never tells you what is really there. And two, every bit of that illusion, the movies and the camouflage both, was built on relentless, meticulous homework. Blueprints, scouting, planning, pre-production. The magic you see is always sitting on top of homework you don't. Hold both of these ideas in your head. They're exactly the two halves of feasibility that I want to talk about. Feasibility is your pre-production. So let's talk about your backyard. When you stand in it and picture an ADU, you see the surface. Flat, open, plenty of room. It looks buildable. It looks simple. But here's the hard truth. The surface is about as trustworthy as that fake Burbank suburb, because underneath and around that open patch of yard is the reality that actually decides your project. The setbacks that dictate how close to the property line you can build. Easements where a utility company or a neighborhood holds a legal right to a strip of your land. And you cannot build on it, no matter how much you want to. The sewer line, and whether it can even handle another home or needs an expensive upgrade. The electrical panel, and whether it has the capacity for a whole second dwelling at all. The soil, the slope, the drainage, the zoning rules specific to your lot. None of that is actually visible from the surface, yet all of it decides what you can actually build and what it will actually take to get your ADU built. Feasibility is the study that pulls back the camouflage. It is the pre-production of your ADU. Before a shovel, before a final design, before you fall in love with a picture, a feasibility study goes and finds out what is really there, what the lot will allow, what the utilities can handle, what the city will require. And it turns all of that into a scope of work grounded in reality. And it matters even more in a city like Burbank, where the typical home was built around 1962. That is a lot of mid-century sewer lines and mid-century electrical panels quietly waiting to surprise anybody who didn't take a look first. Now here's why I love feasibility and why I want every homeowner to hear this. Feasibility is the single best thing you can do for your own project because it kills surprises while they are still cheap to kill. A surprise you find in a feasibility study is a line item. That same surprise you found after you started building or during the design phase is a catastrophe. Same fact, wildly different day, depending on when you learn it. Let me show you what the catastrophe can actually look like. The next story is a composite, but it's based on actual events. I'm going to change details here so that I can keep someone's privacy private. But every piece of it is something that we genuinely see frequently. There's a homeowner. I'll call him Marcus. And he wanted an ADU for his aging mother. Good, loving reason. He got a few bids, and one was fast and cheap and confident. No long studies, no fuss. We'll just get started with the design, and you'll be ready and off to the races. That sounded great. Why pay for homework when you could be building? So they drew up plans, but before they broke ground, they surfaced something, an easement. It turned out that the strip along the side of the yard, right where the corner of the ADU is supposed to go, was legally spoken for by the utility company. Nobody had pulled the title to check. The design didn't work anymore. They had to start from the drawing board. Then the sewer. The existing line could not take a second home with a major upgrade. That kind of thing really jumps your budget if you don't plan for it in advance. Nobody had checked. And then the electrical panel, on top of that, needed replacing too to carry the load of a second home. Again, nobody had checked. So the design that they'd created had to be thrown out, and the budget that they had been planning for needed to be completely updated. Months went by. The project stalled, and a growing stack of bills started piling onto. The money they thought they had saved by skipping the homework and by getting straight into the design actually got spent on this new budget, and it grew far beyond what they actually could afford. Now, all of that could have been avoided if they'd done some feasibility in the first place. This is a horror story, and it's entirely avoidable. Why? Because the homework is practically the whole job. Which brings me to the most important thing I can tell you about choosing who builds your ADU. A real professional does the homework first, not as an afterthought. Not only if you ask first, but before they promise you anything. When a company does a proper feasibility study, before it hands you a scope, it is telling you something important about itself. It's telling you the number it gives you is based on reality, not a hopeful sketch designed to win your signature and then balloon later, once you're far too along to walk away. And here's the part people miss. Doing a feasibility well is not just careful, it's a system. It is knowing exactly what to check, in what order, with which city department for this specific kind of lot, where the easements tend to hide, what the city's sewer requirements actually are, how the city's plan check really works. That knowledge doesn't come from good intentions. It comes from doing it over and over again, city by city, year after year, until you have a repeatable process that doesn't miss things. And that is the whole reason a specialized company is worth it. Not because they're the cheapest bid. They usually aren't. Not because they promise the fastest start. They usually don't. But because they built a system out of a real experience that turns your project from a gamble into a real plan. Every city is different. The real professional is the one who already knows how your city is different, your lot is different, and checks it all before you ever commit to $1 of construction. That is what trust actually looks like in this business. Not a confident smile, not a low number, not a nod saying no problem. A company that says, let us do our homework first, and then we'll show you exactly what's real. Stan Acton built this company around 35 years ago on that exact idea, that you earn a family's trust by knowing more than you promise, and promising only what you know. So if you take one thing from this episode, take this. When you talk to anyone about building an ADU, ask them what their feasibility process was like. If they wave it off and want to start fast, be careful. If they light up and walk you through how they do their homework, city by city and lot by lot, you found a real professional. So let me bring this home, because underneath all the studio talk and feasibility, this is ultimately a show about family integrity planning. And there's a reason feasibility belongs to it. When you build an ADU, you are producing your family's next chapter. It's where your kids get a foothold in a region that would otherwise price them out. It's the flexibility, lasting space that holds your family together in everything they do around all its changes. That is not just a construction project. That is a legacy. And you are the producer. And no good producer, nobody who actually loves what they're making, rolls film on a script full of landmines. They do their homework precisely because they care how it turns out. Feasibility isn't the boring part that delays the exciting part. Feasibility is love, expressed as diligence. It's you saying, the people who will live here matter too much for me to guess. Burbank has known this for a century. The magic everyone remembers, the films, the illusions, even that impossible vanishing factory was always built on homework nobody applauds. The scouting, the blueprints, the pre-production, all that stuff. Your backyard deserves the same respect. It's your hard-earned money. Do your homework first, then make the magic. And that's Burbank, a dentist's sheep ranch that became the media capital of the world. A city that can make a backlot disappear and make you believe a backlot is actually Casablanca. And Burbank has always known the real secret behind the magic. It's do your homework. Thank you for spending this time with me and for caring enough about the people you love to want to do this right. If today got you thinking about your own backyard, this is exactly what we do at Acton ADU. And we spent 35 years designing and building homes as one-stop shop. We've been serving homeowners throughout the Bay Area and LA County for a while, including right here in Burbank. And we start every single one of our projects the same way, by doing the homework, a real feasibility process so that the scope we show you is built on what is actually there, not what we hope is there. No surprises. That's the whole point. And we don't just build ADUs. We build homes that last and legacies that stay in the family. And if you've got a project you want to kick off or you're interested in learning about our own feasibility process, here's my honest nudge. Waiting isn't doing you any favors. Costs aren't going to go down, they're only going to go up. So if you're in the early stages of doing your homework, I always recommend feasibility as the smart move. And believe me, I learned this firsthand when I did it for my own ADU. So visit actonedu.com or call 408-539-1908 for a free consultation anywhere in California. No pressure, just an honest conversation and an honest look at what's really possible on your property. I'm James. This has been ADU Adventures Building in Your Backyard. Let's go do some homework and then make some magic. This episode was sponsored by Acton ADU, the experts in high-quality, long-lasting ADUs. With over 35 years of experience in California, Acton handles everything from design to permits to construction and makes the process seamless for homeowners. If you're thinking about building an ADU, visit actonedu.com or call 408-539-1908 to get started. Thanks for listening to ADU Adventures Building in the Backyard. See you next time.